If you're expecting to reach any of the goals that you've set for yourself, you've got to hear today's episode. My name is Rachel, and I am here to talk to you today about the simple sentence that is going to leave you learning how to set the systems that you need to achieve any goal that you set for yourself. What's the sentence? Here it is. Top performers rely on their habits, not their goals. Let's face it, we all have the best of intentions when we set any goal, and it goes a little something like this. Something inspires us. We get excited. We set a goal. We do the thing until we don't, which is usually explained by a variety of excuses because life gets in the way. And then it fizzles out to the point that we kind of forget that we even set the goal in the first place. If you've ever been there but feel committed to reaching the next goal that you set, stick around, because today I'm going to help you understand how top performers rely on their habits and not their goals. How? By showing you a system that works. Now that said, it's up to you to put the systems in place, but I'm going to give you the exact breakdown how to set a system that helps you create the habits that will help you achieve your goals. According to Forbes magazine, effective habit formation has little to do with goal setting. So if goal setting isn't inspiring enough, how the heck are you supposed to get inspired to do these habits? Understanding your goal actually helps you create those habits. But I think that it's important to understand exactly what a habit is first. So what's a habit? We all have them. And oftentimes when we think about habits, we think about the negative. We think about the bad habits. Let's first take a look at the definition of a habit. Simply put, a habit is something a person does usually in a regular or repeated way. According to Psychology Today, a habit is formed once a new behavior becomes automatic with little conscious awareness. What many of us don't realize though is that all habits have triggers. And when we're thinking about bad habits or trying to stop bad habits, it's really important for us to identify those triggers. When it comes to good habits, some of us don't even realize that we need a trigger in order to help us create the habit. Let's talk a minute about bad habit triggers. I discovered a bad habit of my own just recently. I didn't even know I had it until I was preparing this episode. And while I'm slightly embarrassed to admit it, I'm going to share it with you because, well, first, I'm now experimenting with recognizing the trigger to the habit to see if I can adjust it, but also because it just goes along with today's topic, so why not? All right, I only just discovered that you can actually go into your phone and find out how many times you've picked up your phone in the run of a day. I know this probably isn't news to you. I'm sometimes a little late on the draw, but I just discovered this on my own, and wow, I was horrified. I went back and I looked at a 2-week average. Well, I averaged 2 separate weeks. The first week average was 112 pickups a day. And even worse, the second week was an average of 136 pickups per day. So naturally, I tried to think about what is the trigger to this ridiculous behavior of well over 100 pickups of my phone each day. And here's what I discovered. I found that there are 2 triggers. The first trigger is when I'm bored. When I'm bored, I pick up my phone, I scroll social media. But the second trigger, and this is bad, is simply looking at my phone. So many times when I look at my phone, I subconsciously find myself picking it up, and I don't even have a reason for doing it other than I just looked at it. To me, that's concerning. Interestingly, I found that picking up the phone itself is a trigger on its own. So I look at my phone, I'm triggered to pick it up. Once I pick it up and I have it in my hand, I'm triggered to open up my phone, and I've recognized that I automatically go to either check my mail or to scroll social media, which is often a complete waste of time, but just a time filler. Now, since today's talk is not about bad habits or breaking bad habits, I'm just gonna stop there. But the most important thing moving forward in today's episode is that you understand that triggers are important, whether we're talking about bad habits or good habits. That said, triggers are equally as important to creating new habits as they are to breaking old habits. And this is something I don't think most people realize when they're trying to reach a goal. Because in order to reach a goal, you have to create new habits. Otherwise, you would have already reached that goal. In order to reach new habits, you have to be changing certain behaviors. And if you don't have a trigger that helps elicit that behavior, then those habits are not easy to put in place. And without the habit, that goal that you set and you want to achieve, yeah, it's probably going to die out. All right, now that you understand the importance of triggers, let's figure out how we can set up a system to help create a habit that will help us achieve our goals. Because remember, top performers rely on their habits, not their goals. But of course, earlier I said that it is important to understand your goals in order to create new habits. But in order to create new habits, you have to understand how to set a system. You actually use it as leverage to create your habits. So first, you're gonna set a goal. Now, if you're experimenting with this system for the very first time, I would suggest that you pick a goal that is a little bit challenging, but you believe is easy for you to achieve. The reason I say this is because to get into a new habit is going to take more than a day or two. It is really important that you understand triggers and that you understand how to set this system of creating habits before you set this huge goal that is going to require a huge behavior shift. It's better to start off small. Then once you get more confident in your ability to set this system, it'll be a lot easier to go bigger. So I'm gonna use a really easy example to start. We're gonna say that you wanna start reading. Maybe you set a book goal for the month. We're not actually gonna talk about the trouble with finite goals right now, but once that video goes live, I'll link it here and I'll link it in the description below so that you can check it out and see what kind of goals fit your lifestyle best. And that said, if you haven't subscribed yet, you're gonna wanna do that now so that you don't miss out on the notification of that video. But I digress. Reading goal. All right, say you wanna read 4 books this month. So that's about 1 per week. You decide that you are going to commit to reading a little bit each day to achieve your goal. I'm gonna give you 2 scenarios. I'm gonna give you person A and person B. One is with a system, one is without a system. And I want you to tell me if you relate to either of them. We do, however, need to make sure that we understand that this person is not already an avid reader. If you are already an avid reader, this goal is not going to be any problem for you to reach. But we want to imagine that you're not an avid reader and that this is something a little bit challenging. All right. You're person A, you set this goal and you are excited. For the first few days, you read in bed because that's the time that you get to relax the most. You find yourself not being able to put the book down. You're so excited. Another day, you steal a few minutes while cooking supper. Another day, you relax in the bath while reading a chapter or 2. You are on track. Now on the weekend, your child has a tournament, some sort of sports tournament. You take the book with you to get a little reading in. After the long weekend, it was exhausting. You come home tired. You realize late that evening that you left the book in the car, but it's no big deal. You can skip a night. You've been doing so good. The next morning, you wake up to a sick child and you kind of forget about reading all that day. It's in the car anyway. It doesn't matter. Your sick child takes precedence. A couple days later, you go to pick up the book and you realize it's still in the car. But your partner has taken the car to work and the book along with them. No big deal, you'll get it when they're home. The next day, the book makes its way inside, but as you crawl into bed that night, you realize that it didn't make it to your nightstand. Oh well, there's always tomorrow. Days later, you decide you just want to finish that book to say that it is done, but you also remind yourself that life is really busy right now. By the end of the month, the first book is read, but you didn't even realize that the month was over and you didn't meet your goal. In fact, you really haven't given reading a second thought for a while. Now you're person B. You are excited. You ask yourself why you even want to set this goal in the first place. You decide that you haven't really done a lot for yourself lately, and you remember when you used to read a lot that it actually brought you some peace. And while you love your family and you want to devote your time to your family, you also understand that spending some time for yourself is equally as important. And so reading is what brings you some peace. This is why you want to set that goal. You decide that it probably makes the most sense to read before bed each night because that's when the kids are tucked in bed and that's when you actually have some time to unwind and relax. You figure that 30 minutes sounds reasonable. And because you understand the importance of a trigger, you're going to leave your book on your nightstand so that it is a reminder when you crawl in bed each night to pick it up and read. Although you're pretty sure that your excitement is going to be enough to help you reach your goal, but still you commit to putting your book on the nightstand. Finally, you commit to a check-in after or at the end of each week, because you know that it's important to kind of have checkpoints along the way. It's night 1, you crawl into bed, and you read for 45 minutes. You are so proud of yourself, and this is a really good book choice. Night 2, you fall asleep after 15 minutes. Night 3 and 4, same thing. You just can't keep your eyes open. By the end of the first week, you are only halfway through the book. It's time to reevaluate. You ask yourself what's not working and how you can fix it. You admit to yourself that even though you love this book, you just can't keep your eyes open at the end of a day. You're way too exhausted. You evaluate the times that you could read, but you also understand that you want to commit a 30-minute non-interrupted block. You don't want to just steal 5 minutes at a time. So you decide that you could binge read over the weekend, or you could get up a half hour early every morning. You have no other choice. Although you value your sleep and you don't really want to get up any earlier in the morning, you also understand that trying to binge read on the weekend is not really going to work for you. So really, the only option is for you to set your alarm 30 minutes earlier. So do you do it? Of course you do. Why? Because you understand that reaching your goal requires you to do something that you haven't already been doing. Because if you were already doing that thing, you would already have that goal. So you ask yourself, what would someone not willing to take no for an answer choose to do? What would someone who had already achieved that goal decided in this moment to do? The answer is easy. They would have gotten up 30 minutes early so that they could create the habit to achieve the goal. And because you've set that goal, that is the person you want to become. And because that is the person you want to become, you have no option but to create that habit. Although you decide to leave your book on the nightstand, your new trigger is your alarm in the morning. Your alarm goes off, you get up out of bed, you pick up your book, you find a cozy place to read, and you settle in for your 30 minutes. Once your 30 minutes is up, you take your book back to your nightstand so that the next morning when that alarm goes off, which is your trigger, you get up out of bed, you grab your book, you head to your cozy spot and settle in for your 30 minutes. Trigger, action, trigger, action. The constant trigger, reaction, response will lead you to your habit. And of course, your habit will lead you to your goal. By the end of the next week, you find yourself breezing through the 3rd book and you decide that there's nothing you really need to change. By the end of the month, you've committed to waking up 30 minutes earlier every single day. And now you don't even think about getting out of bed. You don't even think about grabbing that book. You don't even think about going to your cozy space to settle in for your 30 minutes. You just do it. And then, surprisingly, you didn't even realize that you well surpassed your goal because you were so busy creating and performing the habit that your goal just came easily. Let's look back at person A. Person A had initial excitement. They did lots of reading at first. There were no triggers, so the book was easily forgotten. There was no consistent routine, so the reading fell to the wayside. There were lots of excuses about why I can't do it or why life is so busy. Little accountability, lots of excuses and reasons why, which allowed person A to find it easy to say, I'll do it tomorrow. Then the goal is put to the wayside or completely forgotten. Then you have person B, who's committed to setting up the system. They have initial excitement and drive. There's lots of thoughtful pre-planning. There are decisions on the trigger. There is a commitment to a check-in and a commitment to revamping if needed. Then the habit is created. And in this case, the goal was reached. The best part of setting up a system is that it helps you become the person that you aspire to be in order to achieve the goals that you've set. And let me go back to person B to explain what I mean. And I want you to imagine as person B that you didn't achieve your goal. There's a much bigger takeaway here that too many people miss when they're trying to focus on achieving a goal. While the goal is still relevant and still important, the system that you created in order to commit to the habit that will help you achieve your goal is going to carry you so much further than just obtaining the goal. Now, that's not to say that there aren't going to be days that you can't show up for yourself, because life happens, but there's also a system for that. And if you'd like to know exactly what I'm talking about, you're going to want to watch how to use the elastic method for achieving your goals. And I'll link that down in the description, but I've also added it here. And you're not going to want to skip out on that, because I can tell you that I've been using this system for the past 7 weeks as of the time of this recording, and I have never been more laser focused, productive, or organized in my life. So if you are committed to setting a system, here's what you need to do. You're going to set a goal. You need to understand the why behind why you want to set that goal. Why is it so important to you? You have to ask yourself, what would a person who had already achieved that goal be doing differently than I am now? That will help you understand the new habit you have to create. Think about what trigger can you use to help you perform that habit, preferably every day. Set up the trigger. Set it up so that the trigger is easy. The trigger happens hopefully the same time every day, and the trigger always has to be the same. Once you have the trigger, you perform the habit, and once you consistently perform the habit, you naturally find yourself propelling towards the goal. Sometimes forgetting the goal in the process because it's the habit that is the most important thing. I'm so excited to hear all about the systems that you're setting and the goals that you're reaching, but you know the drill. In order to keep content coming that is valuable to you, the kindest thing that you could do is to give me a like to let me know. And of course, until next time, trust your own journey.